Welcome to Now We're Getting Somewhere. I'm Katie, and I'm a certified life coach, but I've also been a management consultant at McKinsey and a product manager at a tech startup. In other words, I know what it feels like to have a life that looks pretty good on paper, but doesn't feel as good as I want it to. I help my professional clients develop lives that are more meaningful, happy, and also more successful. And I want to share the same practical insights with you. Let's go. Hello, everybody. I'm recording this on a Friday, so I want to say happy Friday. My personal update for today is going to be that I just did some yoga with Cassandra. She's a yoga YouTuber, and she has this incredible series called the Morning Yoga Movement. I don't always do it in the morning, but she also has one called the Evening Yoga Movement. And they're like 30 days of 10 to 15 minute yoga videos. The evening one is really mellow, more stretching, and the morning one's like a little more active. So if I do it during the day, I like to do the morning one. Oh, it's just the best. This is an unpaid testimonial about the value of yoga with Cassandra and her 30-day morning yoga movement. I don't know about you, but I love yoga. I don't always love doing a full class, like a 45 or 60-minute class at home alone on YouTube. I just find it kind of boring. I love it when I drive to a class, but in this season of life, the yoga studio that I like the best, it ends up being like 20 minutes to drive there and I have to park. I really need to block off like a half hour each way. It's too much. So I don't go as much as I'd like to. And yoga with Cassandra is really just making it for me. And also just 10 to 15 minutes of yoga is incredible. It makes you feel amazing. It's like nobody's ever thought of this before. Everybody has thought of this before. But I'm just sharing that with you today. If you need a little yoga snack, that's my recommendation. I mean, I'm sure there's a million of those on YouTube, but I really like yoga with Cassandra. Okay, team. Today, our topic is priorities. I am going to make a simple argument today, which is that knowing your actual priorities, like a ranked list of them, is surprisingly often the solution kind of almost to whatever problem you have, whether it's, just a tricky issue that you don't know what you want to do about, or a guilty thought, or if you are one of the many, many people who I know has a tendency towards overthinking or over-researching all these kind of like small everyday decisions. Like you spend too much time deciding which ski pants you're going to buy, or, which raincoat you're going to buy, or whatever it is. This is also very helpful for that. There are two approaches to thinking about your priorities that I tend to find to be useful in my coaching practice and with myself. And I'm going to talk you through them through a few different client stories. I think I have 3 client stories and one quick story about me. And I will say, I feel like I've said this a couple times recently because I really feel like I'm getting back to the basics with some of these podcasts, but some of these ideas seem a little obvious, but I still think this podcast is really worth a listen because, again, it's really just like a Swiss Army knife solution to all these different problems. This concept, I think, will help you. And you're probably likely not using it as effectively or frankly as often as you should. And sometimes, of course, hearing about how other people have used a technique gives you ideas for your own life. So with that overview, let's go. So as I said, there's 2 ways that we can use prioritization in a practical way. The first one is to make a ranked list of all of your priorities in a row. And I'm going to give 2 client examples here of 2 very different situations. So the first one is from a recent one-on-one client. This client came to me very burnt out, overwhelmed, frustrated, particularly overwhelmed and frustrated because there were a lot of projects, especially at work, that she really wanted to do but hadn't gotten to, but frankly also in her personal life, a lot that she wanted to get to but hadn't gotten to. And she was talking to me in this particular session about a marketing idea that she had. She runs a small organization, a small, very successful organization. And this idea had been suggested to her by someone she really trusted. And logically, it was a good idea. It was a total slam dunk. It was a kind of a best practice in her field that she wasn't really yet doing. The problem was she was burnt out. She was overwhelmed. She wasn't getting to a lot of good ideas in her life. And this is relatable, right? Relatable to a lot of us. And at some point, I just looked at her as she was telling me all the reasons why I should do this. And I was like, hey, what are your priorities in this season of life? Like, if we made an actual numbered list, and how does this fit in? And given that I knew a decent amount of what mattered to this client, I had a feeling that this new marketing idea was maybe number 10 on her list of priorities. And there were a ton of things that really mattered higher up, recovering from burnout, caring for her partner, caring for her own health, which had taken a hit recently. And she also had a bunch of, actual professional work that she wanted to do that wasn't just marketing work. Also, she was moving at the time. And this marketing idea was nice. It would be good, as we all knew, on a bunch of levels, but I had a feeling it was beneath all of those things. And after I asked her that question, she kind of cocked her head at me and to the side and she said, Katie, I have no idea what my priorities are. And we were near the end of the session at that point. So I made that homework for her to make an actual ranked list of her priorities. And wouldn't you know it, 24 hours later, she emailed me to say that, first of all, she'd made a list of her priorities. And yes, it had become immediately clear that this new marketing idea wasn't anywhere near the top. But even more excitingly, really, for her, once she saw that ranked list, she finally got some very important work done. Not the new marketing idea, but some very important core work that she had been meaning to do for weeks, that she had been actively procrastinating that very day. She got it done and sent off. And that made so much sense to me because she finally got in tune with her priorities. She was finally able to see what mattered and what didn't. And to know that right now, she wasn't going to get to number 10 on her list. She wasn't even going to get to number 5. And she could let those things go. And miraculously, and very importantly for her, when she was able to let things go, it freed up so much energy that she was able to get to what did really matter for her. And that client example is a little bigger. It's prioritizing across all these big life categories, but a literal ranked list of priorities is also surprisingly powerful. I'm going to say surprisingly powerful. It's surprising how powerful it is if you are somebody who spends too much time on little decisions. I just had my last open coaching call today for my How to Know What You Want course. And someone came up for coaching, a client came up for coaching, and she said she was struggling still with kind of small decisions. And the example she gave me was of buying a new raincoat. And she told me, and I bet that a lot of you listening to this can relate to this, she has this really smart brain that's able to think about the decision in terms of so many different variables. Like, oh my gosh, should I prioritize making sure that raincoat's really waterproof? Because not all raincoats are totally waterproof. And should I prioritize making sure it fits me really well? And what about, maybe I should just order a coat that I really like already, but it's in a kind of impractical color and I should buy it in a more practical color. Or maybe I should, but that coat's kind of long, so maybe I should prioritize something shorter. Or maybe I want to pick something really packable. I can fold it up really small. And what about, minimizing the environmental impact from shipping? And all of this is so relatable, right? Because this client was very clearly trying to optimize and get what she wanted kind of in every single one of those categories simultaneously. And because practically that's often impossible, she was putting off making a decision, and it also just took so much brain space for her to make even small decisions. So I said to her, hey, I think there's a development opportunity for you to practice making a ranked list of priorities. And in this particular one, I want you to do it because I want you to know what you're actually trying to solve here. Is the most important thing, maybe first minimizing environmental impact and then that it's packable and then everything else underneath, or maybe number 1 is fitting you well and number 2 is a brand you already trust. Something does have to give. And so I just want to know where the give is going to be, and you get to choose. And basically, as soon as I said that to her and she started mulling on it, honestly, over only a couple seconds, she knew what to do. And she honestly I don't even think she wrote anything down. So this kind of thing can seem like it's maybe clunky or annoying or going to take up so much time. But as soon as you start, literally saying to yourself, I can't have it all. What's the order? What's the prioritization? It often comes together pretty quickly. So those are 2 examples in pretty different contexts of, again, this very simple idea, which is make a ranked list with extreme honesty. Not everything can be number 1 or number 2. Some things will necessarily have to be number 7 and number 8. Let's know where we stand and go from there. So that's the first way of thinking about prioritization. The second way of thinking about prioritization is not necessarily to enumerate every single priority you have, but rather just to name the two that are in conflict and to force yourself, again, to be radically honest in comparing just those two. So I'll give another client example here, and then I will finish out with a quick me example. So I was talking to a client last week who I've worked with for a number of years, and she has one of the most energetically expensive lives I have ever seen. She has multiple family members who need extremely extensive support from her. She has a house with like never-ending issues that she needs to project manage the repair of, and that's difficult for a bunch of assorted reasons. And she's also trying to grow her small business. And she is very strongly committed to choosing all of these energetic commitments again and again, at least for this season of life. And that's important, you know. If you know my work at all, you've probably heard me say, I want you to know your reasons and I want you to like them. I want you to know your reasons and I want you to like them. I got that phrase from Brooke Castillo. I think it's so good. You can make any trade-offs. I just want you to see them clearly and choose them on purpose. So I say all this background to say, this client in this particular session came to me and told me that she had the opportunity to take a solo vacation. And this client loves to travel. She is rejuvenated by travel, especially solo travel. And in all the time that I've known her, really several years now, she has dreamed and yearned for some solo travel, but she just hasn't been able to make it work for all kinds of reasons. And so she was really excited about this opportunity, but also a little overwhelmed at the idea of planning it. Like, oh my gosh, I need to look into where to stay. I have to think about the right balance of getting some rest time, but also some, rejuvenating adventure time. And it's all a little tricky. And I could immediately see that thinking about this planning didn't feel energizing. It felt draining. And then she made this offhanded comment to me about this travel agency she'd worked with and had a really positive experience with a few years ago. She said to me, they would do such a good job. They know how to get this balance just right. They even booked me into a hotel that I would probably love, probably otherwise wouldn't let myself book. And because I know this client very well at this point, I was just like, hey, just to name from where I'm sitting, this trip, especially if you got some help with the planning of it so you don't overly invest your energy there, this trip has the potential to give you a radical energy boost, which is something that you in particular profoundly need. So the ROE, the return on energy, has the potential to be huge, and that matters a lot for you in particular. By the way, I will say to you guys, I'm in the middle of recording a podcast and my kids just came upstairs. So if you hear, it seems like they're taking a bath. So if you hear some 5-year-old screams in the background, that's happening. And the trade-offs that I am making right now is that I'm continuing recording. Okay. So I was saying to her that I just wanted to point out that, right now, by planning to book it herself, she was prioritizing saving money over saving and potentially even earning energy. And I wanted to make sure that that's actually the right prioritization for her. And so this client then and I had this conversation about, of course, saving money matters. We don't want to waste money in any sense. And the trade-offs, of course, might be different if this was something she did multiple times a year or even, frankly, every year. But she doesn't. In fact, the opposite is true. She's been craving a trip like this and really needing a trip like this for years. And pretty quickly, it became clear to her that, if this was a certain amount of financial savings versus energy, for her in this season of life, it made sense to prioritize the energy. So that's my client example. There were really just two things in conflict here, but by kind of explicitly naming and seeing the two and kind of forcing a prioritization between just those two, clarity was achieved. She suddenly did know what to do, and she felt so much less guilt and so much more peace around it. And then I'm going to quickly share my personal example before we close out, which is on a much smaller scale, but I personally have realized that I am really trying to prioritize my health and my energy in this season as well. And I sometimes struggle to get healthy food into my body. Like if I'm tired, if I'm agitated, I will default to less healthy food than I would prefer. So I have recently made the decision to let myself buy the overpriced pre-cut fruit at the supermarket. Does anybody else have drama about buying the overpriced pre-cut fruit at the supermarket? I have had so much drama about this my whole life. I mean, we never did that as a kid. It was never allowed. But recently I was just thinking to myself, having ready-made pre-cut fruit is such a win for me in this season of life. Like, if it's already cut up for me, it's just there. Then if I am tired and hungry or, needing to make dinner and tired or whatever it is, it's there. And then I don't eat some sugar or chocolate situation because I'm tired and cranky and overstimulated. I just get out my pre-cut fruit and I eat that. And for me in this season, my health and my energy are more important than saving the money on cutting all the fruit myself. This wasn't always true, but it's true now. I'm very fortunate that it's true. But this is my way of saying through this example and the previous one, you might not need a whole list. It might just be a matter of kind of, again, making explicit the two things that that you have a trade-off between. It might be energy versus money. It might be health versus money. It might be getting this podcast done versus having a recording without my children taking a bath in the background. Which do you choose? Team, that's it. That's this podcast. As is sometimes the case with the best concepts. Again, it's not that you've never probably heard of this idea before, but have you applied it recently? Have you applied it today? If you have a topic that you are feeling guilty or stuck or anxious or overthinking about, there is likely an opportunity to prioritize more explicitly and more honestly, like with an actual list and potentially a list on actual paper. If you are wondering what to do this weekend, what are your top priorities for this weekend? If you are struggling about whether to leave or stay at your job, what are your top priorities for your career or in a job? And if you are conflicted or overwhelmed or mad or guilty about some interaction with another person, what are your top priorities in this relational interaction? As always, I'm rooting for you. You've got this. If you really want to change in a meaningful, lasting way, that's when you need a life coach. Every client I've worked with has had incredibly personalized reasons why they're in the tired or anxious or stuck or uninspired state they're in. Working with me can help you identify those roadblocks, which are usually blind spots that you genuinely cannot see, and implement a profoundly customized, doable plan for overcoming them. I have a very small, high-end, one-on-one coaching practice. If you'd like to be my next client, reach out at katiesiever.com. I'd love to meet you.